Richard, tell me how are things there in Montreal at the moment?
Well, Montreal is kind of it's still kind of shut down a little bit. It's not
Yeah.
as bad as it was, but
Mm.
interestingly enough, I'm actually, as we speak, I'm in Florida, and
Oh,
I can't get. I've been having difficulty getting back over the border because, and I'll explain that in a minute. But
yeah.
but I was performing down here. I
Okay.
had 3 weeks with an opera festival uh,
Yeah.
in the orchestra, and one
Mm.
week as a in a pops orchestra that I was playing. So I
Yeah.
came down here, and during that time, Montreal came up with a new, um, somewhat draconian ruling that you if you fly in, if you take a flight back in, you
Yeah.
have to stay in a hotel. You have to first of all take the COVID test before you get on the plane,
Yeah.
and then you take the COVID test again when you get off the plane, and then you have to find your way to a hotel, one of the hotels that they picked,
Mm.
and stay in the hotel for 3 days until you get the results. And sometimes it's only one day, evidently, but you still have to pay for 3 days. The price of the hotel is very expensive, not the normal
Mm.
price,
Mm.
and you can't go outside while you're in the hotel, but maybe 15 minutes a day they let you walk outside with somebody else watching you, and then you have to go back in. So and the food, they bring you the food, they only a certain amount of food, only a certain amount of water and whatever, and you stay in your room for however long it is. So essentially, I don't want to do that. I don't want to take
No,
a chance with
of
that.
course.
So
Yeah.
I have a house down here as well. I have places, both places. And so
Mm.
I just, okay, I'll just stay in Florida and wait it out a little bit and
Mm.
see if they change that rule. But it's
Mm.
been now, I mean, I finished my last show February 27th. So this whole month has been just
Mm.
here, But then I have another set of concerts, April 4th through the 11th. I have four sold out concerts. So I have to, well, they're here. So I had to, it made almost no sense to go back anyway, because I'd
Yeah.
have to
To be
still do a
there.
quarantine for 2 weeks plus the hotel.
Mm.
So, and then come back and play another set of four concerts, that are all sold out. So it was a little bit iffy for me to go back,
Mm.
and there's still restaurants are not open. Um, Maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, some business, like getting your hair cut, you could go get your. For a
Mm.
while, you couldn't even do that, right? So it's it's still pretty. They're still on a code red. They still call it a code red,
Mm.
and they just lift. There was an 8 o'clock curfew, but they just
Oh.
lifted the curfew to 9:30 now. So
Mm.
everybody, that was spooky to me. I
Mm.
mean, all of a sudden I'm looking out and there's no traffic anywhere, and
Yeah.
when I was
Mm.
there, it was happening. So
Mm.
here in Florida, it's completely open. I mean,
Mm.
everything is open.
Oh,
So
really? And if you say now the concerts, do you have audience at the concerts? If you say it's sold out, is it full
yeah,
audience or a half?
all the concerts are completely sold out. Full, totally full.
Full audience.
But they're outside
Ah, okay,
because
okay.
it's Florida. So
Oh,
they're
okay.
so
Yeah,
which is why I came down, because it's the only place you could play a concert, really.
yeah.
And so yeah, it's but they're still distanced, and people still have to wear a mask.
Mm.
But
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 it's outside.
at least you're
Mm.
playing, and performing.
Mm.
So you
Mm.
know.
But how was it for you in April in March 2020? Because did you also have then a complete lockdown?
Complete.
Mm.
All my concerts were canceled. All my tours were canceled. Everything was canceled. It was and Montreal was completely locked down. Yeah,
Mm.
businesses closed. Everything. Yeah, except for
Mm.
grocery stores and
Yeah, yeah. But you are teaching as well.
Yeah, I'm professor of trumpet at McGill, McGill
Mm.
University. And I'm doing all my lessons online, which
Oh,
they were
okay.
online anyway. So it didn't matter in a way that I got stuck down here because
Mm. Yeah,
I'm teaching online anyway.
yeah.
So they did start maybe last month. I think it was last month. They did start having smaller orchestra concerts, and
Mm.
but no audience. They were
Okay.
just videotaping the concerts and then
Mm.
streaming them.
Mm.
Some of them live streamed, some of them recorded and then put on later.
Okay.
But so they started doing that. Excuse me, and everybody distanced again,
Mm.
and string players and most everybody in masks, and then and brass players and wind players masked when they didn't play, when they're not
Oh,
playing.
okay. Yeah.
They would take them off and then play and then put
Mm.
them back on. But they do have those crazy ones with the openings and such. But I don't think that works so great.
Yeah. But what about the yeah, the wind instruments? Um, is there a further distance, or is it not so crucial?
No, 2 meter distance.
Oh,
Every
2 meters.
two
Yeah.
meter distance, yeah.
Mm.
And they're pretty good about it. Really making
Yeah.
sure.
In the first lockdown, how soon did your students? How soon did you start teaching again, or did you just? Was it the first? Did you also hear about the lockdown in that it's going to be 3 weeks, or did they already know it's going to be longer?
When it first started, you mean, right?
Yeah.
March. Actually, the lockdown was pretty complete, and we were told. Now it's funny. I have to go back and remember that.
Mm.
Something I wanted to put out of my mind, maybe. But anyway, we were told that we were not allowed to actually teach
Mm.
for a while. I think it was about 3 weeks. Yeah, it was about 3 weeks, and so everybody was supposed to stop teaching. But what I did actually, uh, because I felt kind of bad. Well, I felt bad for my students. So what I ended up doing is I did what I was told. I didn't teach, but what I did was I set up immediately a few online masterclass kind of situations with friends of mine from all over, some in Europe, some in everywhere, but um, to actually do some classes for the students to keep them playing or
Fantastic. Mm.
some music happening.
Mm.
So once a week I did that. I had a different artist come in every week and a couple of times I did I think two in one week. So they were all playing in their apartments, and this kind of thing, which was a little. Some of them couldn't play, they had to have mutes in their instruments or whatever. But it was better than, I didn't like the idea of them just stuck in Montreal and not being able to play, not being able to take lessons, no classes.
Mm.
So it was the best I could do was to do that.
Well, I think it's wonderful and as motivating for them as well. And then, of course, having this opportunity to do these master classes with art, musicians over the world. That's that's this double-sided thing of the lockdown is that came so many positive things also out of this negative.
Hmm. A lot of positive things really have come out of it. Actually, I mean, all in all, it's obviously a negative thing,
Yeah.
but I'm also a conductor. I also do quite a bit of conducting. I have a group that my own wind a professional semi-pro, basically wind ensemble. And I was just talking. We just had an executive meeting the other day, and they're all missing performing. But we were talking about it, and I mentioned that, for instance, I'm also the president of the World Trumpet Society. I'm the president of that group, and actually the founder. But you know, if you looked up worldtrumpetsociety.com, you
Yeah.
would see the amount of artists we have this year, because it's going to be done. Our seminar, if you will, is going to be done online.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so the amount of artists we have from all over, is stunning. So, I never would have been able to do that without, you know, COVID essentially locking us down to a certain extent, right? And then having to use Zoom and this kind of thing, and to continue. So there's great. It's really quite amazing, the amount of artists. So it should be. We're even hosting a competition from it as well. So it's,
Really?
yeah. So we're trying to stay very active, and this kind of thing. So yeah, and I said the same thing to my band when we had the executive meeting. I basically said, yeah, it's, all in all, it's a negative experience. Who wanted this? Nobody wanted this, nobody likes this. But you can either sit around and complain about it and do nothing, or you can find ways to be, to make something happen, to
Exactly. Yeah.
come up with new ideas and move forward even in a negative time. So that's kind of what we've done, and in most of the organizations that I'm in. So and a number of the organizations are like, I also teach at Domaine Frege, and which is in Quebec. It's anyway, and right now we're still planning on meeting in person in June. So
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it's going to be distanced and it's going to be a little different, but because the last year it did get it didn't get canceled. It got put on Zoom.
Oh,
So
okay.
we did it on Zoom, and we still held the festival, but it was effective, but it wasn't as effective as it would have been, obviously, in person.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So this year we're still planning on doing it in person. So I'm very hopeful that that will happen. But, I have heard nothing different yet. So I think everybody's cautiously optimistic.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we'll see.
But I heard also from a ballet teacher that they did a competition like this on well, recorded footage, and of course, like you said, it was not the real thing, and it was not as great as it would have been with the performance or the audience, but he also mentioned that so many dancers could enter, because of course, if they had to fly there and had to stay and pay accommodation, they couldn't have, but now they could, because they could send it, the videos in. So there are really, in that sense, I wonder how many of these things will not, I think always, these live concerts and these competitions will always strive to be, live, but I wonder in the future how many of the, say, semifinals or other competitions would still continue like this, online, so that it gives other people also the opportunity, and that that artists have started this now, but maybe could also improve it for the future.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Well, just, when you look at it, just something like what we're doing right here.
Yeah.
And you're in my favorite city in the world, I think, Vienna.
Okay.
I love Vienna, but anyway, this would not be nearly as, and the amount of, like, for instance, the World Trumpet Society, some of the artists that we've picked and that will be on, doing these master classes online during it's a 4-day seminar that we're doing. Anyway, uh, some of them I would have never met, necessarily, but now we're creating these bonds, if you will,
Yeah.
through this negative situation, turning it into
Mm.
absolutely a real positive, in a sense. And I think that's the best. What you're saying is the best way to look at it. And I do think you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, I've now I don't know exactly what this is, but I've been hearing lately, it's one of the difficult things about online teaching, right? Is that you can't, it's difficult to play together,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
because of the lag, the time lag.
Mm.
But I've been hearing that because of that situation, that there's companies that are coming up with ways that the time lag is so small now that you can actually start to
Mm.
play together. Now, if
Mm.
that's true, I haven't seen that yet. I mean, I'm still dealing with Zoom with
Yeah.
my students, but if that is indeed true, or that happens, that's a huge breakthrough that probably wouldn't have happened,
Exactly. Yeah.
except for this. It might have happened, but it might be a long, farther ways off,
Yeah.
because it
I've
wasn't me.
also, yeah, I've also heard somebody say that now that the students say, for instance, with the teaching online, or the students have to record themselves and send in the footage. Um, Now they are more aware of how they, so they play and record themselves and then have to listen and then send it. So they more aware now of that, of listening back to what they've done, or they can now spot their own mistakes, or do you find it like that as well?
Well, if you mean because you can record, do you mean because you can actually record the sessions? Is that what you mean?
So some students record what they play and then they send it to the professor.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And for them to then, of course, they want to send the best version. So they listen to themselves and re-record and listen again, and then they sort of almost correct themselves in a way, or they can hear the mistakes they make. Where as if they just play, it's also different than listening back.
Yes. Okay. Now I didn't know if you, okay. I'm
Yeah, yeah,
following
yeah.
you perfectly now. Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
Mm,
And it's funny because in the past, when I was gone, like when I'm on a short tour or I'm out of town or whatever, um, instead of making up the lessons when I would get back, because it was kind of difficult to do that with a number
mm,
of students, then, trying to pack them in. And I used to try and do half the studio, a double lesson before I left, and then the other half when I got back, but it still made for a very hectic week, right? Well, what I was doing now, what I had started to do was exactly what you're saying anyway. And that was I'd give them stuff to record, maybe not the entire lesson, not an entire lesson, not 60 minutes worth of stuff, but I would say, do this piece, this etude, whatever, these
mm.
exercises, and then send them to me. And it was, yeah. Not only was it good, here's a second thing. Not only was it good for them to do that, like you mentioned, and to listen back and hear mistakes and fix things that they don't normally do, because a lot of times they just go by rote. They do this every day, so they let things go. But now you
Yeah,
can't, because you have to listen
yeah.
to it, But there's other positive parts of it too. I found a lot of times that when my students would make recordings for competitions, it was they'd find all kinds of difficulties making these recordings. You know, they weren't used to setting up the hall that they would record in a timely
Mm.
fashion. They didn't set up the engineer, whoever was going to do the recording for them, to make sure all the times worked out. They didn't, you know, so many things they would forget to do, or they'd wait too long to make the recording. You know, they'd wait to the last day, and then, you know, something goes wrong and then they don't get to do the recording, or like you said, they're not, they think they sound great on the first take, you know, but all of a sudden they
Yeah.
listen and go, oh, it took me 10 takes to get one good take of this, you know. And so it taught them that recording themselves is a good thing to do on a weekly basis
Mm.
anyway, even if it wasn't for Zoom. So the point is, yeah, I mean, there's even that part of it. They learn how to record,
Yeah.
and how to, and all the things that you have to do to organize prior to doing that. So
Mm.
yeah, I agree. You know, it
Mm.
again, another good thing coming out of
People, yeah.
a terribly negative thing, you know.
Mm. I found I've photographed a lot of students here from the universities, the music universities, and I found them very. I mean, I found this interesting because I know that they are on. Many of them were on that level where they graduated, where they would have graduated in that here, and also audition then, and um, sort of stepping into real life then for them. Um, and this is what I felt. So it's sad in the one hand, because I think that brought them this. First of all, they had the insurity, because that's always the thing. Where are you going after your studies, or what are you going to do? But now this had an added unsure feeling, because it was now this whole corona issue, and you know, that they couldn't audition and so on. Did you find that with your students as well? The feeling that where are we going now, or what's going to happen? Because I think the path for them would be also be different than it normally is.
Oh yeah, I mean, we can speak about that for a long time if you want, but you know, because I've seen, you know, that. Okay, now we've gone from a positive, making, you know, to what is
Yeah.
really a negative. Um, there has been, as a matter of fact, I can't find anything at the moment positive about what we're going to talk about now, which
Mm.
because I've had at least. I want to say 3 or 4 of my students um, really considering doing something else now, and a couple of them, I can think of 2 that actually have dropped out of music because of this, because they're fearful for jobs in the future now, and so they just figured, well, I'm going to get out.
Mm.
As a matter of fact, I just okay. Um, One of my more talented students that I finished with me, finished his degree at McGill, and then he went on to Rice University on a full tuition scholarship there, and a very fine player. Has been a finalist in some international competitions and such, and he started calling me. I mean, his is a better situation, but he started calling me because he's always wanted to play in an orchestra. That's all he wanted to do. Is his idea was, I want to play in an orchestra, and that's how he was training, and he was on a good trajectory that way, as good as you can get in this business. But he started calling me, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and he decided that he was, there's nothing wrong with this, but he decided he was going to start auditioning for military bands because he
Mm.
thought the orchestra situation is in a little bit of trouble. So
Mm.
he got a little nervous about that, and so he's been taking, and he's made the finals. He hasn't won one of those yet either, because I think there's a lot of other people. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact, here's something interesting. um, he auditioned for the Army band in Washington, D.C., which is one of the president's bands. And he made the final three, and he was one of the final. He didn't get it, but interestingly enough, the person that won it was playing in the New World Symphony in Miami, and was playing in that orchestra, which is Michael Tilson Thomas is the conductor, and I played in that orchestra actually years ago. Um, but he's in New World. But then the person who came in second place was associate principal in the Indianapolis Symphony, which is a major orchestra in the
Yeah.
U.S. And I guess they asked him, okay, you're third associate principal trumpet in Indianapolis. Why are you auditioning? And you already have a job. Why are you auditioning for the Army? And his answer was because he hadn't been paid in 5 or 6 months or something, because the orchestra shut down, and they weren't paying anybody. Nor were they paying, as I understand it, nor were they paying their health benefits either. So that's a nerve-wracking kind of situation.
Yeah.
So, but here he's auditioning now for a military band. Again, nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, my first job was solo cornet with one of the president's bands. That was my first job out of college. But so there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great job, but it's just interesting that he has an
I
orchestra
see what
job.
you're saying. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
And one other, it hit home with me because my son is a percussionist, but he's in his last year at McGill, and his senior year there, and and so I've seen it in him. That the for a while the doubts. He was looking at all kinds of other things that he could do. And I kept trying to encourage him.
Yeah.
But you know that age group, they're very, it's already, like you said, it's already difficult to get a job in this field, but now you add this situation, and yeah, I don't see anything good about that. The other things we've made better, but
Okay, so now I'm going to tell you what I told them, because I think this might be something that might happen. Well, that I hope that will happen. But this is now me talking from cloud nine. So this is just what I think could be possible. So I was saying to some of them that were who were a bit negative about this, I wonder if they would be the sort of leading some sort of movement, the trying something new, or doing it in a different way, because they are basically on the rock bottom at the moment, so they have nothing to lose. So they will be more daring, I think, and they would be not thinking. I think in any industry there is, like you say, there's this normal path you go. So when you're done at university, you audition if you want to go in orchestra, and then it's all these things you do. And now that that's fallen away, I wonder if they will start something new, or start something in a different way, but still to pursue music, and that we will then in 20 years time or so look back and think, okay, these were the young ones who started this, or who changed the music industry a little bit, just because they had no other way.
that's a good way to look at it. Absolutely. And I haven't seen, I haven't seen anything like that happen yet, but that's a great idea. That absolutely. I mean, I could see that happening now that you mentioned that people come up with new ideas, and what to do, as opposed to, for sure, the ones that had one directional minds of just playing in an orchestra. Now they're forced to open up and look at other opportunities or other ways to make a living in this business. Or yeah, I can see that. I
Yeah,
can see
because I see a lot of young musicians here start some sort of collaboration, ensembles, and not just, that they would have their hands in different ensembles. It's not that they just stick to one, so they'll do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I do see that quite a lot recently, since I've been photographing them and sort of see what they do on Facebook and Instagram. And this is what makes me think that that would be maybe these groups, these ensembles, or these smaller quartets and so on, that they will start making their own concerts, or organizing or finding ways to do it. And that's not the traditional way, and not maybe big concerts, but start smaller, but then in that way build up a sort of a fan base. This is what this is my idea, that I think that might be that going that way.
Mm-hmm. I can see that, and I think you're right. I mean, absolutely, some new, smaller ensembles, maybe even different instrumentations now, and it'll get people thinking. The ones that aren't completely distraught over it or whatever and want to get
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
They'll come up with some
yeah.
new or ways to stay strong through it and come up with new ideas. The other thing that I did actually, I should have said this too. I forgot. I was talking to somebody the other day. I don't remember who it was. Probably on one of the Zoom meetings that I was on, but I'm sure. And I mentioned to this person, I said, the interesting thing, because we were talking about audiences and how is this going to affect audiences. And, our audience is going to generally want to come back into inside halls right away, even with the COVID, even with the vaccines, and even with whatever. Are they really? There's going to be for sure a number of people that'll be nervous about it, and really older an even older generation that'll be, I think, very nervous about it. So you can look at it that way, but on the other hand, I was talking to the same person. And we were talking about this. And I said, on the flip side of this, a different way to look at that is, uh, I have four. I mean, we had three, or actually, one of the concerts we had was on that I have next week. It was just originally two concerts, and and it's with the orchestra that I play, but it's a chamber music concert, so it's the brass quintet out of the orchestra. And anyway, so we're doing this concert, just a 1 hour concert, and they took a string quartet as well, and they did a couple of concerts. Well, they went first, and that was a couple weeks ago, and they were playing in a garden, an outside garden, and the same thing. They had two concerts set up, but they sold them out, so they added a third concert, and they sold out the third concert. Likewise, this brass quintet, the same thing I'm doing, had two concerts originally, and again sold out the second concert. They added the third concert, and now the third concert sold out. So people are on the because of this situation. A lot of people are are starving for live music. And I'll give you one more example. In the opera, we got a couple of free tickets, and that we could give out. So I gave out these tickets to Magic. We were doing Magic Flute, La Boheme, and Pagliacci, and anyway, and rotating them each day. Anyway, so I had the tickets for Magic Flute, and I gave them to a friend who said she was going to use them, and it sounded great, and okay. But then I found out she had talked to somebody else who said her husband, somebody else who said her husband, his favorite opera was Magic Flute, and he's I forget how old he was, 75 or something, like maybe he was 80 actually. I don't remember, but and hadn't been out of the house, and had some medical issues anyway, and so the person I gave it to gave them the tickets.
Mm.
Well, so to make a long story a little bit shorter, I
Mm.
live my house in Florida is right across from the community center where there's a pool and
Mm.
and a hot tub and this kind of thing. So I went over to the hot tub the other day, and I was getting in, and this lady who I've said hello to a few times, and I've seen her in there before and whatever. So she says, I went to an opera last night. And I went, oh, you did? And she, yeah, I saw the Magic Flute. And she goes, a friend of mine gave me the tickets. And I went, oh, that was my tickets, But so
Yeah, yeah.
it's just kind of funny how that happened. And she goes, oh, it was you. I thought it might have been you. And so we started talking about, she
Yeah.
goes, and she said to me, she goes, we were at the concert. It was amazing. Her husband was so happy that she turned and looked at him during the opera, and he was crying. And she said,
Oh.
why are you crying? Because he was so happy to get out
Mm.
and see a live concert,
Mm.
and it just touched him so much to be in a live concert. And so I was stunned by that, and so I said, would you mind, sending me an email with that? I'd like to pass that on to the opera. And so I did.
Yeah.
I passed it on to the general director, who thanked me for sending in this email, forwarding it on. But so the flip side of all this is it when it comes back, when this thing is hopefully behind us,
Mm.
or at least in control,
Yeah.
much more than it is even at the moment. But then hopefully this could really make people really respect and appreciate, and not
Mm.
respect, appreciate more the arts more than they already did.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
having.
This is also one of my questions that I want to ask you. It's about the value of the arts and also the value of the artists, because like you told me now about the orchestra that that couldn't pay the members, and I know in America, I don't know how it is in Canada, but the orchestras and the theaters are not state funded; they're all private funded, and I do hear, and I've spoken to artists in New York as well, and I do hear that they struggle.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you have an institution like the Metropolitan Opera in New York, um, not performing and not paying their artists, that
Yeah.
and the musicians, the singer, I mean, nobody's getting paid, and
Mm.
you're in New York, right? It's an expensive city to live in, and now you have probably expensive, housing bills and
Mm.
mortgages or whatever, and now there's no pay coming in. I mean, and all the Broadway shows, all the Broadway people out of work as well and not getting
Mm.
paid. I mean, yeah, it's very rough. One of my former students is principal trumpet with the Detroit Symphony now, and
Mm.
I've been talking with him a little bit, and they took it seems like almost all of them. New York Philharmonic, I know, I think they took maybe a 20% cut or something like that, and Detroit took I think a 20% cut, and then some orchestras. I just saw today. It's a regional orchestra, but I just saw today that one of the orchestras in Fort Wayne, Indiana, um, they've no pay at all, and they were
Mm.
making a ton of money in the orchestra as it was, but now to be cut to zero, I mean,
Mm.
no payment at all, and evidently, from what it looks like, there's a very very little talk with the management. Even they're not budging on anything, you know. But
Mm.
yet the management, I guess, it sounded like is maybe still getting paid something, but all the musicians just flat out of work. Yeah, it's tough.
Mhm.
I mean, it's definitely affecting. But my a dear friend of mine, I call him my German brother. He plays in the Opera Comique in Berlin,
Yeah.
and I've been talking with him, and he was playing this week with Berlin Phil. So
Oh.
so
Mm.
he's subbing. He's going over and playing with them. But so I guess it's all over the map. Some orchestras in Montreal, the Montreal Symphony is still, I think, pretty much doing the same thing. They're recording some concerts on stage and then airing them later, but there's no
Mm.
audience yet. And the same thing, I know the OM, the Orchestra Metropolitan in Montreal, with Yannick, they've been performing as well. And as a matter of fact, they did, if I remember correctly, I think they did all the Beethoven symphonies for Deutsche Grammophon.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Nobody was there. They took a
Yeah.
large building, took out a lot of the seats, I guess, and set the orchestra up and the choir, massive, big choir, for Beethoven
Mm.
9. Anyway, they recorded uh, all the Beethoven symphonies. So
Mm.
they're still working. There's still some that are
Yeah.
working. A lot of them aren't, as well.
Mm.
So it's
I do
interesting.
see, yeah, I do see that many of the theaters really, do their best to try and make it possible for the artists to still come and rehearse or still do these streamings, and they're really cautious that they really try to find solutions to get these things happen, and everybody is so aware and follow the rules. And so I just wonder if it's not a matter of people thinking of art as entertainment rather than really a necessity. And I'm also wondering about classical music, because classical music seems to be a sort of not there's a specific audience for classical music, and I think maybe it's always like that. Every genre has their audience, but classical music really should be so much more um, appreciated by society, and like you say now, with all the Beethoven music that's being played, how little people, or how few people really are eager to see that or to go, or and I'm wondering if it has to do with the education system, if the education system should not change, that we now say make art a part of the system as important as maths and science, for example. Because I think that the education system of the world is based on the industrial era, the time of the industrial era, and that we now in this pandemic, where the focus is so much on the art and the art that's suffering, that we say, should we not reconsider and say, art should really be a subject in school, so that children are exposed to art, can express themselves, can develop through art, and that will be then the audiences of the future. Now, because not everybody will become a musician, but they will all become then the audiences.
Absolutely. Well said. If I
Uh,
was interviewing you, that would be great.
okay. That's so my wish. I so wish that can happen, because I know in America also, I don't know, in Canada also, there are many rural areas where children don't have the possibility to go and learn an instrument, and families don't have the means to do it. But you know, if it's taught in schools, even if they don't play the instrument, but they hear the music and they are able to dance, or they are able to sing, or they are able to express themselves through, you know, art, you know, to painting or whatever. Um, you know, it's for their development. It's not just for becoming the artist, but it's for the brain development, and it's for the expression of children, you know, that a way to express themselves. And it cannot be that difficult to have a music block in the school if they have a science block.
Right. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I vote for you to be prime minister or president or something.
May I?
You got my vote. You got my
Will
vote.
you vote?
Very well said, and I can't agree with you more. I mean, I absolutely agree with you on all that, and it is a shame watching some of the music programs be cut. One of the first things that sometimes is cut is music and art and the arts, and yeah, it's a really is a shame. You know, just to mention again, I'm president of the World Trumpet Society, and one of the things that one of our well, actually not one of our big mission is to bring music to all continents really, and to people that can't. For instance, our we're doing this 4-day seminar, and it's unbelievable amounts of artists, just great artists, from jazz artists, classical, soloists, chamber players, orchestra players. You know, it's all the whole gamut. You know, and we've you have to charge something because you got to pay people. But we've made this 4-day event 25 US dollars to be able to see everything. Not a day, but for the entire event. And we're working on trying to get funding to be able to get music instruments to people in Africa that don't that if they have, you know, as a matter of fact, my good friend the from Germany, Matthias, he was mentioning, he said, you know, for some of these kids, if they even had an instrument and learned to play the instrument, so they'd be able to feed their families there. I mean, because they could make some money doing something, you know, with their. So it's just very important for all the reasons you just said. Not to even mention the brain development that's been proven that music is helpful. You know.
Yeah, and I also think, I wonder if artists now, for example, I spoke to, well, I mentioned this always, that I think also there's a distance for me between the artist and the public, in the sense that we see you in a concert hall, or we see you performing, and the music is wonderful and everything like looks so effortless, but there's a story behind you. There's a story behind every musician, every artist, how they got there, and things they overcame, and and I wonder if we talk, or if you talk more about these things, you know, and talk, tell stories about. I'm not saying make a drama of it, but you know, like talk about music, or talk about what you like about this music, or what inspired you to play this, or you know, things like that. And then and also for children, you know, because actually this ballet dancer said to me that while he was in lockdown, he used to go on Zoom to the small town in Spain where he came from. There's a little ballet school, and he used to talk to the children and told them his story, how he started in ballet in that little town, and now he's in Zurich Ballet. And that's something that I think is also interesting, you know, that to reach children, not by doing a concert, but by talking to them and making them see the instrument. And I mean, if I just find myself, I've never seen an oboe. I've seen pictures of it and see people play, but I haven't touched it in my hand. And I was photographing a girl who played the oboe, and she showed me how she makes the wreath. Is it? Do you call it the wreath?
Yes.
Yeah. I never knew that, and if I found it so interesting, and she told me how she did it, and so on. And I just think something like that, but that's for a musician, just, you know, the normal thing. But for somebody who doesn't know, it's so interesting, you know. And I can just imagine for children, you know, if they could just hear the instrument from a meter away, or see the instrument, or hear the artist talk, you know, those type of things that I think also could inspire, you
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. That's part of the education business. Well, now it has to be 2 meters, not one, though.
Yeah,
But
okay. With a mask.
yeah. But very true though. Very true. You know, and we often, you know, my brass quintet used to do a lot of children's concerts,
Really? Mm.
and we would invite the kids up and let them look at the instruments, and you know, sometimes let them push the valves down or something like that.
Yeah,
Oh, they go down. Okay, you know, things that you would
exactly. Yeah,
we really
yeah,
do take for granted. You know,
yeah,
we don't even realize. Or putting a mute in a trumpet, and for instance, and the different sound. Well, we just do that. You know, we just put the
mm.
mute in for. But people, why did you put that in your? What was that you put in your trumpet? You know, bell, and you know what I mean. So yeah,
Yeah,
I think you're right, and I think you're also right that those kind of experiences reach out and touch young
mm.
kids, and they don't soon forget that,
No,
and there starts the growth of an appreciation for the arts in all
yeah.
art, whether all arts, you know, right?
Mm. And I think children are so inquisitive, you know, um, and it's a pity that we have them so focused on science and maths, and it's not that I say that shouldn't be, but that I say that the moment you start doing things like Friday is music lesson half an hour, or Friday, you know, Thursdays we sing after school, then art for them becomes this side project, you know, this after school, nothing serious about that. And then they go through life, and they cannot see it as an important part of life, because it's been taught to them in school as being the side subject or the side thing, you know, the entertainment part.
Mhm.
And I think, you know, we appreciate very much when we see somebody is a scientist, or you know, a mathematician. We always think, wow, this is amazing. But it should be the same with art as well, you know.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and that makes me remember that kind of little bit of a joke where people go, you're at a party or something, and somebody says to you, "What do you do?" And you say,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
I'm a trumpet player," and or I play in an orchestra, or I'm a soloist, or this, and they go, "Oh yeah, okay, that's good. But what do you do for a living?"
Mm,
You know,
yeah.
they think it's all just yeah, they don't realize the seriousness of what we do or what we're trying
Mm,
to do, and you know, it is, you know, and that also, you know, not, you know, another important thing is that, you know, it is so true. If people would understand it, it's like, um, you know, you can go to a different country and not speak the language, and it's hard to sometimes communicate. But you know, through facial expressions, you can kind of communicate a little bit, and through
mm,
hand gestures and whatever. But you know, if you don't know the language and such, but in music, it really is true. And I know it sounds kind of verbatim or very trite, but in a sense, but music does transcend languages. I mean, it really does
Yeah.
reach out and touch people. It's not just I mean, I tell my students, I say all the time, I talk to them, I said, it's not just about playing the notes on the paper. It's about hearing and feeling the notes on the paper and understanding the notes on the paper and turning that into an emotion. And when you do that effectively, and when you not only you see the music and it's not you as an artist playing the music, but you transcend that and you actually become the music. So your voice is now and your emotion is now coming out from your instrument, from those notes that meant nothing on the page until you felt them, and then when you do that so effectively, you never know what these people in the audience, what they're going through and what they're feeling at the time, and it can really touch somebody, and you didn't say a word, you just,
Exactly.
you know
Mm.
but you can bring them to a high, and you can bring them to something that just happened that they needed to let out,
Mm.
emotionally, spiritually, and you can touch that spirit. Sometimes words, it's hard to do that. You know,
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
you can go up to someone who's really hurting, and you can put your arm around them or something and say, I hope you're okay, or just sit there with them, and okay,
Mm.
you can do that, but and that's helpful, but I don't think it always can touch them like a
Mm-mm.
melody, for instance,
Exactly.
how you
Yeah.
play something can. So it is a world without music would be really a very gray world. I mean,
Mm. Yeah.
very
No,
colorful.
definitely. Mm.
And you know all about colors. You're taking pictures all the time, and I've seen them. You took of Alexandria.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, I did with Alexandra. Such a beautiful girl.
yeah, she is a beautiful inside and beautiful out.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. I work
Yeah.
with
No,
her
she's a
father.
lovely girl. Yeah.
Yes.
I saw she was your student.
Yeah, she's a student at McGill, and yeah, and her father's the orchestra conductor at McGill,
Oh, I
who's also a
see.
wonderful man.
Mm.
I value working with him as a colleague, but uh, but yeah, she's terrific. Yeah, I saw those
Yeah.
pictures. You did beautiful. I said beautiful pictures. As a matter of fact,
Oh,
I think I said should have been a poster. One of the
oh,
ones
okay.
I said you should turn that one into a poster. It was really well done on your part. So.
Thank you so much. And well, it was easy because she's just, she was such a natural.
But it's true with you. I mean, right? Taking photographs, catching a moment, right? I mean, it's all about catching the moment,
Yeah.
isn't it? And when you see certain photographs, um, if you don't have an eye for it, like you obviously do, it's just a photograph. It's
Yeah.
just a picture. But when you catch the right moments, you can look at that and
Yeah.
go, wow. You can feel something. Same thing.
Well, I sometimes think I'm just lucky that I'm at the right moment with my camera at the right place.
Yeah.
So I think for example, the artist in the windows, that was amazing for me to think it was a frame, and they gave me these wonderful pictures. I just had to stand in the street and push the shutter. They did everything, so that was really great. I think artists have that ability, to do this, to use this, and be creative, and they were all so creative, and yeah, no, that was really a wonderful experience.
Mhm.
But Richard, on a lighter note, what did you do over lockdown that was not teaching and not working, and just, did you have anything that you normally don't have time for? Cooking or
Actually,
fishing?
no, not fishing. I'm not. I would like to do fishing. I just never have time to do that. Well, actually, now that you mention it, two things come to my mind, and you brought one of them out. I never cook, but I mean, well, I shouldn't say never. I
Mm.
rarely cook. I mean, microwave cooking maybe, but not too. But I actually did.
Oh, okay.
Get a couple of cookbooks and try new recipes. I actually did do that. I wouldn't have thought of that, but that is actually true. I
Yeah.
did do that. But you know, actually, one thing I did, um, I'm glad you asked that question because it actually makes me appreciate something and think about something a little more than I did just that you asked the question.
Mm.
And at first I was like, oh, I have to think about that for a minute. But and then you said cooking. I went, okay, that's one. But the other one that actually kind of is interesting, maybe, is that um, I'm an avid tennis player,
Mm.
and I rarely have. You know, it's difficult over the summers to have time to just. Summer is a time that I'm usually on the road playing somewhere or doing a festival or doing this, so I don't have a lot of time to do it. But this last summer, even though it was a lockdown, by a certain part of the summer, you were allowed to play singles tennis, and then they went to
Oh, okay.
allowed doubles
Mm.
tennis. And so the tennis club that I'm in allowed it. So I was playing every day, and I was actually getting good again. Pretty
Oh,
good.
okay.
I shouldn't say
Yeah.
good. Good is relative, right? I mean,
Oh, okay.
you know, good
Yeah.
for me, you know, but I was actually getting back my game. So that was kind of a fun thing. And I did a little bit of writing that I hadn't
Mm.
done before. And then I also did a little bit more jazz playing, smooth jazz, not kind of
Mm.
bebop, but smooth jazz kind of playing that I was working on. So I was doing some fun things. Yeah, I did,
Mm.
you know, and I have a pool in Montreal in my backyard, and most summers I'm in it whenever I can be, but I'm not home
Mm.
a lot, you know. But this time I was home, and I was I'd play tennis, and then
Mm.
I'd swim. And you know, I, I actually was able to, through tennis mainly, I developed some friendships with
Mm.
people that I hadn't had so much before. It was, you know, because everybody was kind of bonding together, I think, during this time too.
Mm.
You know, everybody was
Yeah.
concerned, and, you know,
Mm.
but when we were allowed to, you know, the first few weeks, of course, nothing was happening, right? But then slowly
Mm.
things started to happen. And by the time the weather was pretty good, pretty much good enough to play tennis, you know, I
Mm.
was out on the tennis. I didn't, you know, I'm not, all my tours got canceled. All my summer festivals were canceled. So
Mm.
I played a lot of tennis.
Yeah. My dad plays tennis, my brother plays tennis, my grandparents play tennis, and I think tennis is such a great sport, you know, and yeah, it seems to be people who start playing tennis together, they play for years and years, you know, always together. I know
Very
now from
true.
my family. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it's very true. It's very
Mm.
true. Yeah. Um, and I made, like I said, I made more friends, uh, closer friends, uh,
Mm.
than I'd ever, because usually I'm gone, and and
Mm.
and I'll come back and I'll play like a week of tennis with the at the club, but then I'm gone for 2 weeks, and then I'm
Oh,
back and I'll
yeah.
play a week. Hey, how you doing? And it's that kind of thing, you know.
Mm.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Yeah, nice to see you too. Play a couple sets of tennis and go home, you know. But this
Mm.
time it was, you know, couldn't go
Mm.
anywhere else anyway. So you know,
Yeah.
so
And everything happens a bit slower. I think, you know, we just had more time to talk a little bit longer and to, you know, stay a little bit longer and so on. So I think that was also wonderful. Yeah.
that was very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Richard, now what is your wish for when this is all over?
Oh, that's another good one. Well, you have good questions. Yeah. Well, um, it's so many, but which one do I want to mention first, or which one do I want to? Well, you know, I guess I kind of, you know, I think one of my big wishes that would have to do with, if we're going to keep it within the arts and not,
Mm.
you know, other things, but I would say as far as the arts, I guess my number one wish would be it's tough. I have two of them come to mind.
You
One that
can have 10 if you want.
one is that music comes back, and music and the arts. I keep saying music, but the arts as a whole come back stronger than ever would be one wish. A second wish would be that the appreciation is deeper for the arts after this, and I think that's I think that's maybe not even a wish. I think that's actually going to happen. You know, at
Mm,
least I hope it is. But yeah, a wish, um, and I guess for a worldly one, I think you know, hope springs eternal. But it'd be nice if the world would start to get along through all this and find some kind of uh, a unity, a unifying
mm.
thing, and maybe that would be through music and through the arts and through you know, all the arts, and and we would find a common ground through that. That's a tough wish, you know what I mean? That's a
Mm.
you know, that's one of those hope
Yeah.
springs eternal, you know.
But you know, it's not impossible, because like somebody said to me, and this is something I've never thought about, but really this is the one thing that everybody on this planet have experienced, uh, was this you know, pandemic. And usually when there's a war, it's not everybody, not every country that you know, goes through war or so, but this time it's everybody. You know, we've all been and I think, you know, it's I know what artists have gone through here in Vienna, the ones that I photograph, but it seems to be the same type of thing with everybody that I speak to. You know, it doesn't matter where it is, they are the same type of situations that happened. And I think it's the same in business as well. And I think it's the same in all sectors now, you know, that there's this common ground. And I think this will make us all just a little bit more, I would say, compassionate for each
I was going to
other.
say
And
empathetic,
yeah,
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 empathetic, compassionate. Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
I agree.
Mm,
I agree. For sure, because that's I didn't think about
mm,
that in those terms of, but it, yeah, it is so true.
mm.
There's no country, no continent, nowhere that wasn't touched by this,
Yeah, yeah.
and many still struggling with it. You know, many countries
Mm,
still struggling with it,
yeah.
and and you can see, like in, you know, I see it here in the U.S. and I don't see it. I didn't see it as much in Canada, Quebec, Canada, whatever. I didn't see it as much, but I do see it, unfortunately, a lot in the U.S. now. This uh, frustration being taken out in so many different destructive ways,
Oh, okay.
you know, and you know that would be another wish,
Mm,
that the that frustration and uh, well, if they found the arts, maybe they wouldn't be so frustrated, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah, but it comes back again to education. You know, if we could educate children and give them this opportunity, you know, there are many children who are not uh, good with science and maths, and who are able to express themselves through other art forms. And if we give them that opportunity, you know, they would not feel, because I think many times the problems in society are people who feel insecure in themselves, and and the reaction to be aggressive is because of that. And if we give a child the opportunity to feel their worth through what they can do or what talent they have, then of course, you know, that would already solve a lot in our society.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You answered the question very well.
I could. So I'll run for president then.
You got my vote. There's no doubt
Okay.
about it. I got one already.
I've got one vote already, yeah. But Richard, this was so lovely to talk to you, and the sun is shining so beautifully in your room now. So I think your wish will just, all your wishes will come true.
Maybe I can just get a rainbow now and
Yeah, see. But have a wonderful rest of the afternoon, and all the best. And I hope your son also with these studies and you know that something comes up for him as well. And great that you do all this work with your students. They seem to be very loyal to you.
yeah, they're good. They're good.
And I appreciate always the teachers, you know, because I think the teachers, I hear always, you know, from students how they speak so well of their teachers. And I think the teachers have such a great responsibility, but also, you know, privilege to have these students to work with and to help and to take further, you know, in their careers. So yeah, I value the teachers very much. Yeah.
Very true. That encourage, you know,
Yeah.
encourage these. They all need these. This age group now coming up through that we're talking about. They need all the encouragement they can get. You know,
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
important. You know, the encouragement and
Yeah.
absolutely. All
Okay,
right.
Richard.
Have a
Nice
great
to
evening.
speak to you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye now.